let's talk about shame for a little bit. So, when you're on a spiritual journey and you wake and you start to see the world differently, change your perception, break free of the matrix, shame becomes a pretty big topic for people. One of the aspects of that is shame of themselves for doing certain things. One of the examples I can give is when people start going vegan, they a lot of different people experience shame around having eaten meat and other things uh, because of the nature of animals and energy and that sort of thing. They might feel shame in some of their actions from before, low conscious actions. And I'm here to say, like, at this part of your journey as you're waking, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's what brought you here, it's part of your journey. If you could go back and change it, for me, for example, there are things that I have done in my past, especially when I was very young, that I would not do the same way if I knew what I knew now. The problem is when we look back at all the things that we've done as we go on this journey and we kind of roll back and look through the past and heal ourselves and traumas and repeat patterns, we have to go into it without having shame, without being ashamed of it, because shame doesn't really do us any good. It's not helpful for us. You know, it's just a wishing of having wished we had not done that from the state of consciousness we're in now. And we have to remember that back then, whenever we go into the past, we were not the same person we are now. So you are not the same person now as you were when you may have done something that you might have be ashamed of in the past, from the past. And a lot of people say, you know, they would go back and if they did it again, they would do it differently. They would take the things they regret, take the things that they're ashamed of, and they would do them differently. Well, the question is, would you though? Because if you were the same state of consciousness when you do them differently, would you really do them differently? You probably wouldn't. You probably do the same thing you did based on the state of consciousness you were at that time. And so as you move forward, there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be ashamed of when you uh, change your patterns. When veganism is a big one. When people go plant-based and stop eating meat, they have a lot of shame for eating meat before. Don't feel shame. It's okay to not feel shame. It's okay to just be like, you know what? I operated at a level of consciousness back then where I did not understand, and that was okay. And now I'm operating at a higher level of consciousness for where I'm at now, and now I'm going to move forward at that higher level of consciousness. When you're interacting with people, some people they fight, they belittle, they antagonize, they family dynamics especially. They'll look back and be like, I shouldn't have acted this way towards my brother, my sister, my mother, my father, whoever it was, and they'll be shamed there. Remember, you're operating at your level of consciousness that you are now versus then. Moving forward, just change the way you respond. Rather than react the way you did at a low level of consciousness, respond to situations, respond to choices. Know that you can go into a pattern of making a change. And like I said, I'm going to keep talking about plant-based eating because that's just one that comes up a lot for people because a lot of shame comes up around that for a lot of reasons. You don't have to be plant-based. And again, there's no shame in not being plant-based. But when a lot of people go on this journey and rise vibrationally, they find out plant-based is the higher vibrational option for their journey. And they look back and they go, okay, they have shame around they should have changed their diet sooner. Some people knew that. I mean, I knew for years since I was a young kid I should be eating plant-based, and I ate terribly, terribly, especially when it came to things like bacon. But I didn't shame myself for that journey. I looked back on it and went, you know what? I operated that way because at that time, that's the place I was in consciously. That's the reason I operated that way. So then moving forward, I worked on changing the pattern. And that's the biggest thing, is changing the pattern, but also understanding that when you make a decision to change a pattern, it's not, it doesn't usually happen overnight. Most of the time, it doesn't happen overnight. And a lot of people want it to happen overnight, but don't understand it's probably not going to happen overnight. There's a reason that we take, drug addicts, for example, and you put them into rehabilitation centers, and they go in and they come out of the rehabilitation center, and then they relapse, and then they go back in. And it's this game that they play, going back and forth, trying to figure out how can they get the pattern, the new pattern, to stick. With any habit we have to remember we can relapse. You can be like, I'm going to go plant-based, or you can be like, I'm going to be the nicest person in the world, or you're going to exercise every day, or whatever it is. Whatever it is you're changing, doesn't matter. You can go, I'm going to change this and I'm going to better myself for it. But then you can relapse. And then a lot of people end up having shame around the relapse. And they're going, I did it and then I didn't do it. And I just couldn't, they get into this mindset of, I couldn't do it. But it's the recognition is the most important thing. The fact that you're at a state of consciousness at this time, that you can recognize there's a pattern you need to change. There's no shame for that. There's no shame in understanding you have a programmed pattern you need to change. That's perfectly okay. Now, the job you have after understanding you have a programmed pattern to change is to change it. And it's not easy to change it. That takes repetition, that takes dedication. It takes a lot of work and effort to change those patterns. So what you do is, you, rather than looking back and sitting in like the shame in the past and those types of things, you look at what am I going to do now to change the future so I don't feel that way in the future? What am I going to do now to do better for myself? What am I going to do now to not repeat the pattern? And you do that, and you start. And if it's plant-based eating, you start by not buying meat anymore. Or if it's having a healthier body, you start by going, okay, I'm going to go for a walk every day, or a run, or whatever it is. Or, you start with increments. And I talk a lot about baby steps in other videos. You start with baby steps. Start slowly adding the new pattern into your life and incrementing it. I talk a lot in my plant-based videos about, if you want to go plant-based, you don't just get rid of everything in your kitchen. Don't do that. You go, okay, if you're eating red meat and if you're eating everything, you go, okay, this week we're going to cut out red meat. We're just going to stop buying red meat. And you do that for a week or two. And then you go, okay, now we're going to stop doing birds, turkey, chicken. And you cut that out for a week, a month. And you take baby step actions to take this pattern and shift it and learn how to work with it. And then you slowly do that. I didn't become plant-based overnight. A lot of people think I did. That's not the case. I did increments, and I tried for years. And for years, I was in a situation where I couldn't, because of the situation I was in, the people I was around. There were sabotaging patterns. It was difficult for me to make the choices and commitments and those types of things. There were sabotage from the people, self-sabotaging patterns, all those types of things. And a lot of people are in those scenarios. A lot of people, especially with food, are in scenarios where they live with a family. I live by myself. It's easy for me to change my diet. Now, I should say. If I had a family where one partner is eating a meat-based diet and I'm eating a plant-based diet, it would be much harder, because there'd always be meat in the refrigerator. There'd always be meat in other places. Same with cutting out sugars, or other types of foods. Alcohol, if you're trying to cut out alcohol, it's harder when you have others around you that are have a pressure effect on you, even though they might not be telling you to do X, Y, Z. The energy, the fact that it's in the home, that type of thing can be a pressure on you. And there's no shame in having those back and forth patterns of saying, I tried to do this, but I couldn't hold on to it. I know I need to do it, and falling back and forth, going in loops and circles with these patterns. I did that for a long time with a lot of different things. Um, and the key is just knowing as you spiritually wake up and go on your journey is knowing, okay, what is the thing I need to change? And so if it's your diet, you say, okay, it's my diet. I need to change my diet. And then you go, okay, what do I need to change about my diet and how do I do that? Figure that out. And let's just say you're drinking too much soda. So you're like, gotta cut out soda. Okay, well, how do I do that? Stop buying it, first of all. So stop buying it. Okay, get the people around you to support that, to not have it in your home. Get the people around you to support the diet change and support the shifts and that sort of thing. But don't have shame when you fall back into it, because it takes a long time to form a habit. You need to do these things for at least 30 days to create a habit. With a diet, it's like for me, it was 2 to 3 weeks of being free and clear before you like lose the craving for the thing you're trying to remove from your diet. And even after then, I'm years later and there, I still crave soda. I haven't had a soda for a long, long time. I've had a sip of one like 7 months ago, maybe, and sipped a Coke and was just like, oh, this is disgusting, and put it to the side, just to see what it would taste like now. But I still have cravings for those things. I walk through town. I still have cravings for bacon and all of that, but I haven't had it in 2.5 years, 2 years, at least 2 years, 2.5 years probably. Um, yeah, probably 2.5 years since red meat. So, but those cravings don't always go away. They're still there. What happens is it becomes easier the more you implement the new pattern, the more you implement the new habit. It becomes easier to recognize the craving and just go, oh, that's a beautiful memory, that flavor and that sort of thing, and let it go and not actually act on it, not actually go get that thing that's going to sabotage your habit. But I just want people to understand there's no shame in repeating patterns. As long as you understand and recognize the pattern you're in and know how to get yourself out of it, that's the key. That's the first step. And that's part of being awake, seeing what's happening, not being asleep to it, but seeing what you're doing. And then in a moment when you have a choice going, at the moment of choice going, am I going to choose the wakeful thing or am I going to choose the sabotage repeat pattern thing? You always have a choice. In any decision, you have a choice. And so it's up to you to say, you know what? No, I'm going to pass on the soda. I'm going to pass on the meat. I'm going to pass on the alcohol, whatever it is. And I'm going to get a different option. I'm going to do something differently. Every moment is a choice for you. But also understand there's no reason to be ashamed of not taking the choice, because it is a challenge to make the choices. It is a challenge to break the patterns. And so as long as you're dedicated and want to make those changes, you will. Now, there's another part of the shame aspect I wanted to talk about, and that is shaming other people. A lot of people get into this. They wake up and then they start realizing everything that needs changed because they're changing it too. And they want to tell people, they want to make other people change. If you are speaking to people from a space that is not of your heart space, if you're yelling at them, if you are swearing at them, if you are telling them they have to change, if you're telling them in any way, if you're acting towards them in a way that brings them shame about the way they live currently, that is not a loving method of getting somebody to change. It is not a loving method of getting them to wake up. It is not a loving method of getting them to understand. It is not a loving heart space method. No extraterrestrial or any other being who has ever come to me, who has worked with me, has used shame as a way to shift my opinion. And actually, shame will do the opposite. If you shame somebody, they will get stuck more deeply in that pattern. And that's part of the problem with shame. The more you shame somebody, the more they get stuck in that pattern. Even though they might feel shame around it and understand they feel shame around it and know that they need to change it, the more the outside world projects shame on them, the less they want to shift it. I don't understand the psychology around it. I don't understand the why around it. I just know from my experience with people and what I've seen and what happens with shame, the more that happens, the more that person kind of digs in and sits in that energy and doesn't do anything about it. So remember, when you're talking to people and saying, hey, you need to eat healthier. Don't say you need to eat healthier. Don't say you have to eat healthier. Don't say you look sickly or you're heavy or XYZ. Say other things. Say, you know what? I started eating healthier and I started feeling better. And this is what I'm doing. Check this out. Check this recipe out. Start seeding the idea. Start having a conversation with them. And be like, have you ever thought about eating healthier? Have you ever thought about doing this and not eating all the junk that like I used to eat? How you might feel about it? Don't do things in a way that create shame. Do things in a way that create interest, that create curiosity, that seed ideas. This is a big thing with the holidays right now. I promote, and a lot of us, we promote on the holidays because unfortunately it's the nature of the holidays, especially in America, that there are a lot of commercial promotions. And I wish the world didn't operate that way. You know, a lot of us would rather not have the commercialism around it, but we still have to operate in that manner because that's how our services get out there and we're supported to do this work for our energetic exchange. And part of that is we offer discounts around Thanksgiving, Black Friday, for example. And we don't do it saying we support these holidays and events. We do it in an essence to create conscious offerings and services that people will purchase rather than the other stuff. It's like, hey, they can purchase all this other stuff on discount, or hey, you can also get this conscious stuff on discount too. Please take the conscious thing. Please do the conscious thing because you're supporting us and you're supporting yourself, the energetics, the universe, and it's going to be better than buying a cheap plastic toy or a, I don't know, cheap electronic or whatever they sell these days. I haven't actually participated in the events of in those events for a long time, so I don't even know what they sell anymore other than everything's on discount. But there is no shame in people who are spiritually awake operating within the ways the 3D world operates to lift people out of it. There's no shame in you waking up and saying, I don't agree with Christmas anymore. I don't agree with Thanksgiving. Most of us don't. I don't agree with Thanksgiving. I don't agree with Christmas. I don't put my thoughts out there often about it, but I don't agree with 90% of the holidays America has. It's just not my thing, any of it. There's not, whether it's Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, Independence Day, Columbus Day, all that stuff. I don't agree with most of it, but we operate within it because that's how that world operates, and we operate within it to lift others out of it. And that's the thing. There's no shame if you are spiritually awake and you want to participate in Christmas. And there are a lot of people out there who want to go, why are you participating in Christmas? Why are you participating in Thanksgiving? Why are you participating in the commercial events, all this stuff? Keep in mind, you can wake up and still participate without participating in those events. You don't have to buy all the decorations. You don't have to buy stuff on Black Friday. You don't have to do the Santa Claus things. You don't have to participate in those ways. But also remember that sometimes, for example, with my family, Thanksgiving is a day that everybody has off. So it's a day everybody can get together. Christmas, usually there's 2-3 days. Sometimes families take entire vacations. If they have time off, they can spend it together. But then there are people who will come at it and be like, you're celebrating the holiday, and they'll try to shame everybody who's awake for actually spending time with their family and utilizing it to their benefit. It's just the nature of how our world operates. There's no shame in participating in those holidays. There's no shame in that at all. Understand the truth of what they are. Learn the truth about what each of those holidays are, because we want to shift those and we want to get ourselves out of these especially the enormous commercialization of Christmas, which is insane. Like, it's not right at all. But we need to get ourselves out of that and shift society to something else. I don't know what the solution is or the answer, but there's no shame in you participating in events with your family, even though you're awake. There's no shame in that at all. You are perfectly welcome to do that. And I want you to be confident and proud of yourself for being awake. And if you are still participating with family, for seeding ideas, for being somebody who can respond to them rather than react. Because when you wake up, holidays become very difficult for people. Very, very difficult for families and friends. Because they don't resonate anymore. They don't align anymore. And it creates fighting, anger, division, all those types of things. People don't understand you anymore. But if you can hold the light, if you can go to them and still have a good time and lift them up and seed ideas and help wake them and keep the kids' magic alive and all that, you're still doing spiritual work. You're still waking them up. It doesn't have to be about the celebration of the holiday. It can be about celebrating your family and the moments that you have available to celebrate your family and friends. A lot of people don't understand that. They want to come at different people in the community and say, you should be ashamed of yourself for doing X, Y, Z. No, you shouldn't. Shouldn't be ashamed of anything, because you're operating at your level of consciousness now, and you're trying to also lift the consciousness of others around you as you operate at a higher level of consciousness. And shame is just a lower vibrational emotion that nobody really deserves to feel. Like, you operated one way one time, you don't need it anymore. And understand, if you see the first of all, if you see the camera moving, my cat is hitting the tripod. But also understand that, and she completely derailed my thoughts. But there's no shame in the past. Oh, the low vibration. Anybody who comes at you, if you feel shame for anything, you can ask me a question about it. You can ask another spiritual person a question and be like, hey, I feel ashamed of this, X, Y, Z. Is this valid? Is there a reason? Understand, anybody that is coming at you and making you feel ashamed of something is not operating at a high level of consciousness, no matter how much they believe they are operating at a high level of consciousness. If they are making people feel ashamed, they are not operating at a high level of consciousness from their heart space. They may have a high level of awareness of things. They may have a high level of education around things. They may be highly intuitive about things. But if they are shaming people for different things, they are not operating from a loving heart space or a high level of conscious living, conscious lifestyle, conscious acceptance, unconditional love, conscious love, as me and my friends like to call it, instead of unconditional love. Those who operate in their heart space are never going to shame anyone. If somebody comes to me, like I said, I completely disagree with Christmas for one. I still participate in it because my family participates in it. That's how I experience my family. I don't go into my own space and do all kinds of different stuff. It's just not me. Or participate in a lot of outdoor events, park parades, and all this other stuff. Um, but I still participate with my family. At the same time, I'm not going to go to my mom and be like, you should be ashamed of yourself, or say things to them that make them feel ashamed of participating in the holiday. Because it's not a loving space, no loving reaction. Instead, when things come up, family, friends, whoever it is, you seed ideas, you show them how you're living, you do a different way of life, and then they come naturally to align to you if that's what's meant for them. Some people aren't meant to wake up, they're not meant to learn, they're not meant to shift. And if they're not meant to, they're not meant to. That's all there is to it. And we have to sit in a loving heart space knowing that that soul decided not to wake up this lifetime. And there's no shame in them not waking up. That is their decision, their choice. It is not your choice. It is not your decision. Your decision is to remain in a heart space, to remain in love, to remain on the spiritual journey. And there's no shame in either. Because at one point, remember this, at one point in your life, anything you have ever done to shame somebody else, if you have shamed somebody else, you have done that this lifetime or a past lifetime. Most people have done the things in past lifetimes, have learned the lessons, who are on a spiritual journey. And while we've learned the lessons and we are operating a higher level of consciousness, other souls have not learned those lessons yet. And so they have to go through those lessons. And so they won't wake. But we can't shame them for not waking. That's their choice. All we can do is love them and just encourage them to see us for who we are. And if they're not willing to see us, to understand and love that they're not going to see us this lifetime. And that's okay. So please don't feel shame on your journey for any reason. Please don't encourage shame. Always come back to a loving heart space and just ask yourself when you're responding and reacting to people, are you in that loving heart space? What is the, and in what way are you operating? How is this affecting other people? How is this affecting you? And is it from a state of love for yourself and for others? For yourself, always come back to yourself. Because others may not feel you're in a loving space when you are in a loving space. Remember that. It's a big lesson. You can be in a loving heart space while everybody around you says you're not being loving, but you're actually doing some of the most loving things in the world. So, and that's a topic I can talk about another day. But please don't feel any shame, especially around the holidays. It is okay to participate or not participate. Whatever it is your choice. And just continue waking up, continue your spiritual journey and the work, and believe in yourself and that you are a powerful individual and you are always capable of achieving a more loving reality, a more loving life. And it all comes down to you. I love you all. Grateful for each and every one of you watching, and thank you.